Great. Welcome everybody to the August Town of Sykesville Planning Commission meeting. It's August 2nd meeting. The public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. There will be no discussion on items not on the agenda as they have not been made part of the required public notice of this meeting. All right, again, welcome everybody. We're going to table the July 6th minutes review and approval until next month. And with that said, I think we're going to get right into the county updates with Ms. Claire Stewart.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just the normal updates for you. The first is the comprehensive rezoning. Planning Commission held a virtual public engagement session in June. And we anticipate the Planning Commission forwarding comments to the county commissioners on the residential text in August or September. The fall amendment to the water and sewer master plan, the application deadline is in the beginning of September, and then we'll start processing that amendment. And the transportation master plan, if you recall, the county put out a survey in late spring, early summer, and then we will be before the Planning Commission August 4th, just to go over those survey results and go over the next steps for that plan. Any questions?
Sweet, thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions? Great, thanks, Claire. The next item on the agenda is 7448 and 7452 Springfield site plan. Joe, you want to give us a little background on this?
Sure thing. So again, this is the proposal before you tonight is for the two parcels that make up the old Dunright furniture, I guess, sales room and warehouse. So the proposal is to convert the existing warehouse building into 12 one-bedroom apartments, two two-bedroom apartments, in 3,121 square feet of commercial office space. So in evaluating this proposal, these are allowable uses within the local business district. So again, no real issues there. However, there are certain things that must be complied with in order to convert that building into, or at least the warehouse building, into apartments. Namely, that they have to use 50% of the first floor for commercial uses, which is being shown there on the site plan. That they do have to meet the parking requirements, which we'll get to in a second, and then that the apartments have to meet certain size square footage per apartment. There are height regulations within the business local district that limit the height of the building to 2.5 stories or 35 feet. Again, it does look like they comply with this. However, upon submittal of an official site plan, they will have to show those dimensions so that we can verify that it does fall into compliance. The biggest issue, obviously, with any project downtown would be the parking provided. They are showing on the site plan roughly 33 spaces being assigned to the warehouse building, basically the residential, and the commercial, with an additional 12 still assigned to the single-story structure on the right-hand side. Let's see. One thing to point out that though they're a little short on the parking for the residential and commercial, they are also showing a little bit of a deviation from the dimensional standards for the parking spaces, at least within the interior of the building. There are 18 spaces shown on the interior of the building. Those spaces are being proposed at 9 feet by 17 feet when the standard is 9 feet by 20 feet. So again, they're a little shorter than what the adopted standard is. And then the drive aisles to access those parking spaces is a little more narrow as well, the requirement being 25 feet. And they are showing a 17-foot drive aisle. So the Planning Commission does have the ability to grant waivers for parking and even drive aisle dimensional standards. We would recommend, though, that if any waiver were granted, that they are subject to the town's parking impact fee of $1,000 per waived space. So again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give feedback to the developer so that they know how to move forward with an official site plan submittal. That submittal would actually go through the county review process and then have to come back before Planning Commission for official adoption before they could move forward with anything. So I know they are the representatives of the developer are on the call and can certainly answer any questions or expand on anything that I've just said.
Yeah, I do. So the building on the left, as we're looking at the plans, is the one to be converted into apartments with the first floor retail, or first floor half is retail, correct?
That's correct. And Carrie, if you can bring up the floor layout a little bit, that might give everybody a visual to follow along a little better.
And what is the proposed use for the commercial space in the front of that building?
On the warehouse building?
The building on the left, the warehouse, yes.
Right. And I'll let Aaron talk to that.
Okay.
Sure. Hi, folks. My name is Aaron Warren. Some of you know me. I represent the development group. I have with me tonight Paul Muller, who's our building consultant, and Marty Hackett from CLSI, who did the site plan for us. So for those who don't know, I'm one of the owners of Alderson Loop. We're a company that's located in town. We started on Main Street. We've been in and around Sykesville for the last 7 years. We own one of the buildings in Warfield, which we've redeveloped. And this is part of our dream to help Sykesville realize the North End. So to answer your question, Steve, proposed use for the commercial space is, so it's broken up into 4 individual units that are around 700-800 square feet each. Total is about 3,100 square feet. They are connected in that they could be a single user, potentially hospitality, potentially a cafe, potentially retail. I would love to tell you that I could see the future, but our target here is to provide a mixed use facility that draws Main Street north to the natural northern end of the business local zoning, and provide spaces that are flexible at both the small retail to a large single user, if that user were to come along.
More 9 to 5 initially.
Yeah, and the target is certainly professional, right? That, you know, we believe in the mixed use concept, where there are daytime users and nighttime users of this parking facility. We see it work in, you know, the rest of downtown all the time, and I expect we'll see a similar effect on the north end.
And Joe, I guess the question to you, as far as parking is concerned, do we have different parking loading or requirements for retail versus office?
Yes, there are. I believe office standards are 50% of the floor space being used. If it's retail, if it's above 2,000 square feet of floor space, it's 100% of the floor space must be converted to parking as well. And then if you go into restaurant or hospitality, it's even more. So I think what's on the proposal was, I believe it was going to be just office space.
Okay, which has the lowest parking load of the commercial uses, correct?
50% of the floor space would be then converted to the equivalent amount of parking.
Got it. And in the building to the right, what is the projected use for that building? Developers.
So we don't intend to change the use of that, and quite honestly, we're trying to break even on that while we figure it out. You know, the warehouse has always been our first target for redevelopment. If you've been by lately, you'll see that we've painted it, and you know, our goal is to continue with no additional change to that, as you know, retail or commercial office space, whichever comes first.
Okay, and there's parking inside, or you were proposing parking inside that building, correct?
Yeah, the goal is, and so to give those who don't know a little bit of history, so we took this before the BZA, we got their blessing to treat the two parcels.
Sorry, hold on, we can't hear. Something's going on.
Oh, sorry, I'm folding paper over the mic.
Rustling of
Sorry.
paper, sorry, Steve.
Okay.
So the BZA gave us approval to treat some of the facility at 7448 as complementary to 7452. So we've taken about half the space of that building. It made sense converting that to indoor parking. And so, yes, we're trying to squeeze every last space we can, to make it palatable for both our residents and our tenants.
Got it, but no current use for, or no proposed use for this building yet. So we don't really have a full scope of what the parking load requirements will be for this development in total.
Other than it being used as what has been for kind of existing with some light duty, could be another small furniture antique situation, could be some artists. I don't think Aaron really knows at this point, but the idea is to kind of know that there are restraints with the parking, but really there wouldn't be any more or less than was already there for that portion of the of that building.
With the exception of the neighboring building, which will have a higher parking load than it does today.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm looking at it in total for those two buildings, and that's why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking.
Understood.
You know, there's another development proposed for the north side of downtown. I'm sure everybody on this call, or most of us, are familiar with. It also has a shortage of parking. And so that adds another development to the north end of town, again, with a shortage of parking. So that certainly is a concern. And that's why I'm asking the direct questions concerning types of use and the parking loads for those types of use, and what types of use you have chosen in this plan to come forward and get our feedback. And that was the one with the least amount of parking impact. My concern is just with the parking at this point. I think it'd be great to have a development in the north end of town, and but the parking sizing will certainly be an issue if there's a parking waiver granted, and that's why I wanted to bring that to light so the Planning Commission could at least understand that.
Yes, Steve, I looked at the buildings and I've looked at the plan as well. I'm all for the development. I'd love to see that site develop, but I do think that the parking plan as it is on here, particularly the indoor portion, is really optimistic. And I think it's a little fanciful to put that number of spaces in that particular amount of space in that building, which is well below code. And I would have a personal problem with that, and I would argue against that number of spaces in that building.
Have you guys, thank you, Phil. Have you all done any type of parking analysis with turn radius or anything inside the building?
Well, the one thing, Steve and Phil, on that subject, as far as we realize, we're working with an infill situation. We have studied this parking inside and out. Obviously, you would think that we have, and we believe we have. And with that interior space, we plan to, there's some posts in there now that we're going to relieve through structural columns. So it's a fairly open area. But with it being infill, it's obvious that when Aaron's group leases an apartment, one of the conditions is they can't have a suburban. I mean, a suburban is just not going to be something that's suitable for these spaces. This is going to be your smaller, compact to small, mid-sized car that are going to be able to maneuver in these spaces. Aaron's done some infill work, and so have I, and in spaces where you don't have a lot to work with, and you have to work with what you have. So in laying this out, we've been very mindful of, yes, we do have smaller than the open range parking spaces would call for, at least on 18 of them. But that goes with knowing that smaller cars are going to be what is going to work with this. And those that drive a F-150 or a Suburban or a larger vehicle aren't going to be suitable for this property, for those spaces.
Let's run that down a second here. So you're leasing apartments, and if I'm an applicant who comes in with a large pickup truck and you have no spaces, you're either not leasing me apartment or you are telling me to park down the street. What are we doing
That's a
here?
good question. In my opinion, it would be an issue that we couldn't provide parking.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, but that wouldn't necessarily stop someone coming in with a Toyota
Well,
Yaris and
well,
going out and
that's
buying
true.
an F-150.
Well, that's true. They'd be parking down on my lot, of the closest one down the street.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
Unfortunately.
a very good solution.
Yeah, maybe not.
I just think there are too many spaces budgeted for that particular space. It's getting a quart into a pint pot, and I'm not sure that it's practical.
And I'm going to go back to the question I asked. Have you had a parking analysis done with turn radius study for inside that building at this point?
I think that's a Marty question.
Yeah,
Yes.
Marty.
Yes, sir. We did look at that, and obviously for your smaller vehicles, the turning movements work. You can pull in and out. We have it set up at the end of the one building to where there's turnaround areas where vehicles on the end units are able to sit there and back up and turn into call it blank space, voided space, to make that turn to go back out. The 17-foot drive aisle is still enough to make two cars pass each other if they need it. I mean, there's public streets that are in the typical section around the county today that are 18 feet wide that pass two vehicles. So, I mean, it's certainly it's a maneuver for it. We looked at obviously if there's a larger vehicle that's going to rent there, there are some places out along Springfield Avenue that those parking spaces basically meet the code. The spaces that are outside, there, I mean, they are your 9-foot by 20-foot spaces. If I may, we looked at the one, not the plan, but the second page. When we looked at this, we felt that when you look at the required spaces for the apartments and some professional offices and stuff, that you can come closer to meeting the requirements than what the existing use was back years ago. If that same use were here today, I mean, we're at an existing deficit of like 62 spaces if you looked at all retail and so on. So intensity wise, I think we have a fairly less intense use. Parking, like I said, yeah, the parking spaces are creative, but no matter what, if you look at the downtown area, no matter what situation you have, most of the time, nobody's got the ability to accommodate the parking basically within their properties. When you look at them, they're looking at public spaces, and we thought we'd put this to the highest and best use possible as far as meeting the criteria.
Understand. And I'm going to go back to the question about, let me ask it another way. Did you commission an outside consultant to come in and do a parking analysis study with a turn radius for inside this building? Or was that just back of napkin drawings that you all had provided yourself or done yourself?
Well, it's not back of the napkin drawings. We have,
Can you provide that to Joe then, please?
we can, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Because I will tell you, if this is going forward, we'll certainly request that to take a look at that. So that might nip it in the bud here early on down the road.
We have turning movement programs that we run calculations with. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got no other questions. Again, I'll echo Phil's sentiments here. I think it would be great to have a development in this end of town. I think from what I've seen so far, some apartments and mixed use would be great. My concern is with parking count and parking sizing and access too. What is the drive aisle between the two buildings at the narrowest point?
I believe that runs around 14 feet in the narrowest point, and we have set up a proposed pullover area.
Okay.
As you're driving back the drive, if that's the case, the people have room to pull over the bypass.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
And just so I understand, and I'm reading this plan correctly, we've got the one-story existing building, which will stay as is and includes the additional parking, extends back further than the warehouse building. And approximately how many feet does that go back further than the warehouse building?
About 100 feet.
Okay. And so we have roughly 125 or so feet of side-by-side building there for the drive aisle, correct? Approximately.
Approximately, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, again, my only concerns at this point are the parking sizing and a number of spaces, but otherwise, I'd love to see a development up there. Any other questions or concerns from the Planning Commission at this point?
I have a question. I will take any feedback or, I mean, we are doing our very best to put as many rational spaces here as we can that are workable. And, if we were to come back with 2 less spaces to give more turning area for the inside parking, would that be more palatable?
I'm going to take a look. I think we talked about the other development that there may be a relationship with about the same thing about parking being an issue there and the potential for a parking study done on the north end of downtown. This may be a perfect time to do that, and we'd have a comprehensive answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not married to this. This is just the best idea we had. So, in terms of how we fit the maximum number of parking spaces in, if anybody has an alternative idea for us to look at, we're happy to do it. We'll provide you the studies that CLSI built, and you can review those.
Joe, what is required of the Planning Commission this evening?
It really is just to provide feedback. Now, obviously, when if any adjustments are made to the plan and they want any additional feedback, they can certainly do that again. But concept plans are typically just for that feedback purpose. And then if they decide to move forward with a site plan, it would go through county review. And once they addressed all the comments through the county review process, it would come back before the Planning Commission for site plan approval.
Got it. And but I'll throw this out there, not less density and type of use, I guess, would mean less parking requirement. Is that correct? Just in general? And I'm not advocating for less density. I'm just bringing, bringing that up. I don't have any options for you at this point. I'm not an expert on parking. But perhaps CLSI is or has a consultant that is and may be able to help in that process to come up with some other ideas that maybe solve the situation.
Yeah, I think if Mr. Chairman, if I may, if I'm hearing it correctly, if there were information that were provided to show that based on the uses being proposed, assuming that there can be some uses that are selected for this site, and the number of residential units that are going to be proposed, if CLSI or somebody else can show that the number of spaces being provided, whatever that number ultimately is, that the Planning Commission would consider that as part of the site plan approval to show that, okay, well, a study was done and it was looked at, and whatever the number of spaces being provided potentially does match the uses being proposed at that building. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
Basically, I think also what we've heard tonight is there's going to be some management issues as well. And not that we get involved in management issues on the Planning Commission, but I think that's a serious concern because, how they're going to handle those situations. One of the questions I had was answered tonight, answered pretty good. That's, how do we get 2 vehicles on the road or the pathway between those 2 buildings at 225 feet of length, and the pullover is something that handles that situation. So that was certainly a plus. But again, if somebody in a big Ford 150 coming into the back, not going to fit, where are they going to park? Are they going to be allowed to park out front in a reserved space for them, signed as such and managed by the developer or the manager of this property? Again, that's not something for us to get into, but from a Planning Commission perspective, but it is a question I'd ask, certainly.
Okay.
Great. I've got nothing else. Anything else from the Planning Commission?
No, I think we covered it.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, guys. I look forward to seeing the next iteration. And again, I don't want you to we have concerns about the parking, but certainly from a development standpoint, would love to see it, the developments in the north end of town. Just how do we get the problem solved, I guess is the next question, or is the question.
The feedback, much appreciated. Particularly the management of site and the size of the vehicles. That's a very good question for us to come back. Actually, I mean, it's a necessary
Yes.
for us to do that more thoroughly than obviously we've done up to this point. But I think it's something that is doable. We just need to figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah, I know it's early in the process and you guys are getting hit with this, but there's questions that would certainly come up in the next phase. So,
Yeah.
so I'm glad we had the discussion today.
Agreed.
Great. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate that and look forward to the next step.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Without any further ado, Joe, town updates.
Just a few quick items. One, I know we've mentioned before the Stonehouse restaurant proposal that will be on the Planning Commission agenda in September. This is again the site that's off of College Avenue in 32. I don't think there's going to be any parking issues on that one. It's a rather large site. So that'll be a good one.
Good for you.
The other thing, and again, this isn't necessarily directly related to the town, but we did receive at least, this was several months ago, work being done at Piney Run and rehabilitation to the Piney Run Dam was kind of a hot button issue. Just to let the Planning Commission know, we did receive at least some preliminary plans for what that work might entail. Now, this is just dam work. It's not the turning Piney Run into a water resource or anything like that. But in case anybody was interested in seeing what those, or at least those initial plans were, we did receive an electronic copy of those from the county. And then finally, everybody's favorite issue is always Warfield. We are looking to schedule a work session, particularly with our town council, and we would certainly like to invite the Planning Commission. Right now, it is penciled in for August 23rd. We're still waiting for confirmations on a few other things before we set that in stone. But if everybody can kind of mark off August 23rd that evening for a workshop with Warfield. And one of these days we'll be back in person, I promise, but it wasn't going to be tonight.
So Monday, August 23rd, correct?
That's correct.
And 7-ish, I guess.
Yeah, in all likelihood, it will be 7 o'clock.
The only other thing I'll mention is just a heads up that our next meeting will be September 7th, which is Tuesday, because of Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jana.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Great. There being no other business in front of us.
Could I just say one thing and just say it's a joy to be back with all of you. This is the first planning commission I've been at in some time, and it's nice to see all your faces and looking forward to working with you.
I should have made a comment at the beginning. I apologize. Jeremiah is our new liaison from our town council, and former planning commission member. So good to you joining us, Jeremiah. Sorry I didn't bring that up at the beginning of the conversation, but thank you. Looking forward to it. With that said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Phil, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.